Thank you, Madam Chair. A very good afternoon to you all. Well, most of the stuff that I meant to talk about have already been presented since yesterday, and I'm certainly not going to duplicate. What I'm going to do is try and pose some questions that can provoke some thinking around choosing the appropriate technology for the different environments. So the outline of my presentation is shown here. I'm just going to quickly look at the purpose of animal identification and recording in the dairy chain, and then look at unique characteristics of production systems that render them more amenable to animal identification and recording compared to other livestock systems. I'm just going to quickly run down the available technologies specific to dairy production and then conclude my talk. If you look at the purposes or uses of animal identification and recording in the dairy chain, one that stands out very, very clearly is breeding and management. I think we all know that we don't export dairy cattle carcasses or dairy animal carcasses. So those purposes, such as market access of carcasses, fall away when we look at dairy production. But dairy breeding and management stands out as one of the single most important uses of animal identification and recording in the dairy chain. Then, of course, there is a need of a traceability system for, I've simply said, multiple purposes, because these have already been presented. But I think one might need to look at some uses that are unique to dairy production, such as reducing public health risks from zoonosis, and I think brucellosis is one of those zoonotic diseases that is very important in dairy production. The issue of providing quality guarantees to consumers. Almost every day when we walk into supermarkets these days, we see something like this: organic milk, organically produced. But there are no systems to provide the guarantee that this is really organically produced milk. So I think in the dairy chain, one of the main uses, or one of the major roles that a traceability system can play, is to provide guarantees on marketing of products such as this. Talking about breeding and management, again, I think I need to stress the fact that dairy breeding and management is one of the major drivers of animal identification and recording. If we take a historical perspective, you realize that other commodities are followers. Dairy animal identification and recording started in dairy animals. For example, in South Africa, official milk recording was initiated as way back as in 1917, and beef recording only started more than 2 decades later. ICA, for those of you who might not be aware, is formerly known as the International Committee for Recording the Productivity of Milk Animals. So the focus was on milk animals, and the rest of species followed. And dairy animals, undoubtedly, are the most extensively recorded species compared to other livestock species. So if we look at dairy production systems, one fact is that they are predominantly intensive. Besides being predominantly intensive, there is regular contact between the farmer and the animal. For example, during milking, they have to be milked all the times. You have artificial insemination being practiced more than in other species. And dairy animals are also naturally docile compared to other species. So this regular contact between dairy animals and farmers makes simple identification tools appropriate. So, Madam Chair, given such a scenario, I would contend that simple ear tags are adequate in most cases in the dairy chain. They are cheaper, they are user-friendly, and they are reliable. And the question that I want to pose is, why can we not use them? Particularly considering this, the fact that in most of the region, most of the animals are owned by smallholder farmers or small-scale farmers. So electronic devices may be necessary in large-scale automated production units, but how many do we have in the sub-region? Now, in terms of, I think to put things into perspective, we need to look at what parameters or what aspects we want to measure in milk. This table here presents a list of aspects that one is mostly interested in measuring in milk, with milk volume, compositional quality, hygienic quality, which is measured or expressed in measurements such as somatic cell count, total bacterial counts, and so on. Then there are quite a number of health-related parameters, such as disease resistance, conformation defects, breeding details such as insemination dates, cervix sire, pregnancy diagnosis. The list is actually much bigger than I've presented here. There are issues of the quality or the wholesomeness of milk, such as antibiotic residues. There are also events such as vaccinations and so on from a veterinary perspective. So this is just an example of the aspects that one has to measure, just to put things into perspective. So when we look at yield or volume of milk, the most widely used tools or techniques are meters, jars, and scales. I'm sure some of you are surprised at the mention of scales, but I think in quite a number of smallholder systems, there is wide use of scales which are much cheaper. I mean, if you are measuring if you only have 2 cows, why would you need jars? When you don't have a milking parlor, why would you need jars or meters? Kamlesh is going to present the situation in India, and there you are going to see how some of these simple technologies are applied. Composition, we have weight chemistry, infrared analysis. Then when you look at hygienic quality, there's spectrophotometry, microscopy, and electronic machines such as the Coulter counter. Then when you look at recording technologies, geez, I don't think I have anything to say here. You've already had the gory details of how that can be performed from the previous presentation. And Kamlesh is also going to give a very interesting presentation on what they are doing in India, which actually shows how technology can be adapted to a particular environment. Given the whole range of technologies that we have, how technologies can be developed around a particular environment to address the needs of that environment. So I don't want to steal Kamlesh's thunder. I know he is burning to tell us about his story, so I will not go into details of those. And I think I also need to acknowledge the very comprehensive presentation that was given this morning by Okeyo, which focused mainly on dairy cattle, particularly in a smallholder system. He gave quite a comprehensive discussion on the various approaches that may be used. In fact, I had to delete some of the slides that I had in my presentation after listening to his, because I didn't want to repeat. So in conclusion, Madam Chair, I would like to, or I guess the question that we need to ask ourselves going forward is, which are the best technologies, tools and technologies. We now have the whole menu, as Dr. Litswenyo said yesterday. We have the whole menu, and what we need is to pick what we require from that menu. And in the case of the dairy chain, I think we have looked at the unique characteristics of the dairy chain, and I think we then need to consider, one, the utility of each and every tool or technology that is available out there. I think I first heard this from Okayo, horses for courses, which means we need to use the appropriate technology or tool for the right environment, rather than just going for sophistication. We also need to look at the cost effectiveness of each technology that we opt to use, because cost considerations are obviously very important in the end. Just to conclude with this quote by Leonardo da Vinci, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Thank you, Madam Chair.